It was 10 p.m. in the night. I was standing in front of my extremely strict disciplinarian South Indian father. And that day I knew that I will be punished. And the reason was, in my middle class house, two things were not allowed: disobedience and dishonesty. And that day I was a culprit of doing both of them. The reason was, I attended my first behavioral analysis class without telling my father. He was against it. He said, that's not what you're going to do. You're analytical, you can understand things better, you always evaluate things, you should be an engineer. I said, okay. But for some reason, in my heart, I was sold that I wanted to do something that I do right now. And he was not convinced. He said, no matter what's happening, that's not what you want to do. And he gave me a choice. The simplest choice was either to agree with what he said or to leave his house and figure it out on my own. We didn't know that was possible. My dad was very protective. All along I was like, shown ways, and he said he made sure that every decision was taken properly. And there I was, not knowing what to do. But one thing I knew, that I want to really, genuinely walk down this path where I want to become someone who contributes to people and their mindset. That day, I left my home. After that, for 6 years, my father never ever spoke with me. The reason was, he said, you're on your own, figure it out. I'm not the only one. There are so many people like me who struggle with convincing their parents, figuring out what they know about themselves is true, but do not know how to go about it. I'm Aditi Surana. I'm a behavioral analyst, high-performance coach, founder of India's first mental gym, where I believe mind can be trained. We can actually create our minds in ways that otherwise we do not know. Otherwise we take our minds for granted, and I don't think we should. This year I was a high-performance coach for the beauty pageant 2022, and I trained all 31 participants to be mentally fit, especially in their competitive environment where things were really, really complicated. They were fighting against one another, and we said, wait, why can we train our minds to solve that problem? I am an artist. I do art which looks somewhat like this. This is my first clothing piece, but otherwise I do line art. The mental fitness idea is such a powerful thing that I feel there are so many ways in which we can express it. I do wall arts, which are based on, again, mental fitness, where we actually use different concepts which are related to minds to create awareness in all possible language. Because art is one thing where it actually goes beyond everything that one can imagine. I'm a podcaster. We have 2 podcasts, around 450 episodes in the last 2 years. And the podcast, one of them was Apple's Mental Health #3 podcast, which is important for me to tell you because what I'm going to tell you is extremely difficult for me to do. I was LinkedIn's creator accelerator, which means they took 200 people, found their voices being very, very unique, and said, how can we have you talk about your content, your thought about whatever topic you chose, and obviously I chose mental fitness. Now I'm telling you all of this because I'm a dyslexic. Talking, communicating, reading, writing are extremely difficult things for me. I naturally cannot do them. I struggle with them. As a school student, I was so bad at all languages. I could use logic, but I could not tell people that I can use logic because dyslexia took over. Things that all of you can do very, very naturally, like writing a bank account number after one column into another. I can't do it. Picking out your flight tickets and organizing the day. I can't do it. The struggle to actually catch my flight. I missed 5.5 flights. For one flight I reached 12 hours prior because I got confused between AM and PM. And this is not a joke. This is like everyday life living with small struggles. But the same dyslexic mind of mine can help me do other things. Which is, again, the mind can be trained. Mind can be absolutely put into a space where you can learn from it. You can actually alter your game. So what do I do as a dyslexic? I can walk into a room, talk to you for 10-15 minutes, understand, ask you some uncomfortable questions, probably ask you to write a paragraph on a page or draw some zeros and talk about your personality, the ability that dyslexia gives you. I can also remember stories forever. I will remember whose connection to what and how these people came together and what exactly happened. After 15 years, I would tell my clients about what I had observed then. How? I don't know. My brain works. So when I left my home and decided to set out on my own, for some reason, I met people, I don't know how, who really saw value in this talent. They realized that whatever I'm doing is kind of different. They called me prodigy, and I didn't know how to spell it. I hope they did not ask me that, because then they would know how dumb I am, right? So that was like the biggest fear I had. And with all of this, I realized that the mind, that people, the way they treat, is underutilized. Most of us look at our lives with a minimum survival attitude. Most people go to work for 5 days, they hate doing their job, and I know many of you are students and you wish to build a career, but I work with professionals and most of them struggle with just going to the office. They have Sunday blues and they have Monday blues, they hate going to office. And I question that. How is it okay for us to be at work for 12 hours, think about it for almost 18 hours, and not like what we do? How is it okay? How is it acceptable for our society? People wake up and they really wait for Fridays and Saturdays to come so that they can enjoy their life. And if people are okay with it, I'm not okay with it. I feel all of us must do something to really figure out our connection with our work. Now, because being a dyslexic, I knew I could never do a job, write an email, or be successful in the typical way. So after leaving the house, I decided to start my business. So ideally, I should have taken up a job, made things simpler, but I realized I, one, not made for it. Also, the challenge is a space where I would learn. If I don't question myself, I don't challenge myself, then all along I'll be limited by my mind. So here, the dyslexic way of solving the problem was take up a challenge, figure a way to observe it, to see what is really difficult, the most difficult part of it, and build skill around it. So speaking, biggest struggle. I fumble most of the time, could not write, till date, cannot write. And I realized I cannot write in a traditional way. So I hired a writing coach and she helped me learn the dyslexic way, which means I write multiple drafts. I have somebody in my team who checks it grammatically, and every content piece that we put out is first approved by my team member. Tough? Yeah, but I write. For me that's such a big deal. I'm currently writing a book, which I never thought would be possible, because every time somebody asked me a question about writing, about articulating what I wanted to say, I could, but with lots of fumbling. Then I said, let's do podcasting. Why? Because again, you need to speak, you need to really command the way you speak, and you cannot do that if you do not have the skill. So every challenge that was presented, I used this technique that I really, really like, called invert and inverse. A technique that I combined two great thinkers to build. One of them is a German mathematician, Carl Jacobi. And he said, every time you have a problem, do not just give up on a problem. Do not say there is no solution to it. Take that problem, think about it, and inverse the problem. The very moment you invert the problem, there are new things that you start realizing about the problem. There's a newer perspective. There can't be a solution to any problem that you come across. There has to be a possibility where you can look at multiple things that would bring a solution to you. So that's where we started. We took mental fitness as a topic, which is otherwise considered as very boring, very complex, with a lot of stigma. People generally run away from it and they said, no, that can't be the thing. I don't want to do it, or I don't want to talk about it. We said, okay, how do you inverse the problem? You inverse the problem by adding probably fun element into it. You inverse the problem by making it functional. You inverse the problem by probably making it fashionable. And that's what we did. So, this is a photo shoot I did. Can you see this? Yeah. It's a photo shoot I did with a very renowned photographer, David D'Souza, where we used mental fitness and used his talent of photography to convey how shackled we are with our mental barriers. How we allow our emotions to weigh us down every now and then. We absolutely feel submerged and we do not do anything about it. Why? Because that's what we're supposed to do. Because people do not know how to deal with their stress, they only know how to run away from it. If you're only running away from the stress that is bothering you, what are you training your mind as? This is a no-go. I cannot do it. We use Bollywood to build this conversation because Bollywood is one of the things things, like everybody can relate. We all laugh about it. So we take a scene or a story from Bollywood and use a mental fitness principle there. We created some cards which are mental workout cards. You can actually look at these cards and play a game. Instead of making it really complicated, only looking at as therapy, only do it when you're broken and helpless. We said, when you're not broken, how do you build mental fitness? When there is no need to do it, can you do it like a workout? Like Pankaj ma'am spoke about health and food. Can we actually do our mental workout and mental diet? So we use things like emotional crunches or journaling push-ups. Why? Because people make a game out of it. And the very moment you take this complex topic and immerse it in a fun element, people respond much better. So things were going great. I was talking to many people, soon became a high-performance coach for leaders, traveled around the world to learn from best of the coaches. Life was kind of good, and I was in disbelief because I mostly didn't believe that I could achieve all of it, right? Like you're a dyslexic and you are struggling with it. And then came 2019. 1 year before the world went into the lockdown, I realized that I'm waking up every morning feeling completely lost. I do not know how to actually understand what was happening because my mind was turning against me. And being a coach, you take it very personally. Like if you're just cooking, you might not take it that personally, but if you're a chef and if you fail, you're like, no, I cannot be doing this, right? So if people struggle with their mental health, one issue, but a coach struggling with it, after all that training and fancy whatever education that you have gone through, you're like, wait, this cannot be true, and there's something severely wrong. So I sat myself down, it was 2019, February, and I said, this is not okay. I need to do something about my mental health, and I did not know what was bothering me. I was struggling to understand and tried multiple ways to get it, but couldn't find exactly what was getting to me. It took some months for me to realize I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is a medical condition that completely makes your emotions go all over the place. And because I wasn't aware of it, I could not point it in my traditional way. And there was a point where I realized that the issue that we are talking about of anxiety, of feeling all confused, is not something you can ignore. I sat there much before the world was talking about it or openly talking about it and wrote a post on Instagram which discussed all the emotional issues I was going through. Many people connected with me, many people started talking about it. And I said, my solution of it gonna be an experiment that I'm gonna build. The experiment was 1 year of asylum. Something that we read in our mythological stories, but I said, what if we experiment with it? For 1 year, I'm going to move away from Bombay, where I live, and go to another city where I have no friends, and figure out how I can use these tools, how I can inverse the process, how I can invert the process to really understand what is going on. And that time, for that 1 year, I said, I'm not coming back home until I have figured out what exactly is going on. I spoke to many experts around the world. I asked them questions about the condition I had, physical, mental, followed Ayurvedic principles, did all the workout needed, and created a mental workout routine. A large part of that routine had this particular stroke. This is called Kama Sutra S-stroke. At least that's what I call it. A stroke that allows your mind to actually connect with itself. It's a 5 to 10 minutes practice that you do. And when you do the practice, you move your hand while breathing slightly deeper than your normal breath. A technique that I've used for many, many years, but I did not know it had specific application when you feel anxious, when your mind is going all over the place. It can induce extreme amount of calmness. I used it. I combined it with a topic of journaling and kept figuring out how I would like to build myself through it. That 1 year ended much early because I recovered and I came back home in December 2019. I said, wow, I found something that nobody knows. I have this tool that I can use and help so many people, all the research on me. Let me start a podcast, let me write a book, let me create a video module. So all the research started. We started working as a team on this, hired somebody from from Holland to work with me to design the module in a perfect manner. The scripting was on. We were about to shoot the videos on March 2020. And we all know what happened in March 2020. I was sitting with all my scripts wondering when I'm going to shoot now, when the lockdown will open. But also I had a thought in my mind that said, what if you die? All you know is COVID can take anybody. What if you die, if you're the next person? And this is where life took a complete turn for me. I became aware that it is not only about figuring out the solutions, but it's also about reaching out to people and give the access to them so that they can use these solutions. So before I knew it, we announced 2 social initiatives into 2020, March, 21st of March, I still remember. One of them was to do 4 free sessions every single day for anybody who's going through anxiety, who's suffering through all this chaos getting to them. And second was a 21-day anti-anxiety journaling workshop where people can come and we can train them how to deal with their emotions, how to build that calmness, how to really go beyond their own limitations. And he said, how do we do this? We call that movement Wellness Warrior. So the process is simple. You're supposed to come to the class or the sessions, learn how to be well mentally and physically, but most importantly, you're supposed to talk to 5 people and take care of them. That was your job as a participant, that you would call people, check on them, and be their wellness warrior. This movement took over. We had around 3,000 people joining in the first batch, and then we had 7,000 people who joined in the next year. And as a result of it, I heard some amazing things. A 53-year-old woman told me that after 18 years, her hand that was shivering and trembling all the time stopped, and she could practice art. From 5 years old to 85 years old, people around the world tried this technique, that S-stroke and that journaling, and when COVID was creating mental fog, these people actually found their calmness through this process. I have had people writing to me for different issues, but one thing that I will always remember till I die is 5 people that I know personally decided to change their minds from killing themselves. And I cannot believe. And I can't tell you, like, these are strangers, I've never met them. But their stories were so palpable, they kept talking about it, and they said, you know, that one video, and that one message, and that one podcast episode actually changed someone's life, someone that you do not know. And I must tell you, that was my turning point. I said, enough is enough. I'm not gonna only look at my work commercially. 2020 was a wake-up call for me. I decided to work on this larger idea to make India mentally fit. It's a huge project. We have humongous responsibilities. Even Is it audible? Yeah. So when I was looking at this and I said, okay, we do not want to only look at this as a commercial aspect. It's high time that we start understanding what all So I decided that time, finally the third time, is I will work towards making India mentally fit. And our country is not only part of the urban world that we live in. There are so many people out there in smaller towns. So we changed the language through which we work. We started working in Hindi, we started working with other regional content creators, and this is what we want to do. We want to gamify the mental fitness. You don't have to wait to feel helpless. You don't want to feel lost before you do anything about your mental health. You want to absolutely work at it every single day. And people who are new, who are students, people who are thinking about following their passion as their work, I want to say one thing. That day, when I was 19, standing in front of my father, not knowing what I'm walking into, I did not know that the work that I would embark, the journey that I would embark on, will impact more than 40,000 people and lakhs of people who have gone through the content. But I knew one thing, that I wanted to make an impact. Because creating an impact is not a large idea. Creating an impact is in every single action that you do. So if you really love what you do, or if you're passionate about it, do not wait for people to look at that accumulative result and say, oh my God, you achieved this, that's the number. It never works like that. It works with every single conversation that you have. It works with every single post that you make, every single connection that you make. So it's actually that small action done passionately, with complete connect is where the impact is made. So please never ever evaluate your impact based on what is correct, what is not correct. Is it marketing based? It's not marketing based. Especially if you want to truly serve the larger purpose, and look at every single challenge in front of you as an opportunity to really learn from. If as a dyslexic, if somebody who doesn't know how to add numbers or copy her OTPs, I feel I could train my mind to do what I would, I feel all of you can. And being a dyslexic, I'm just gonna take a privilege of reading a note, if I can find it. No, I can't. Can I? There's no chits available. But the simple line, one of my favorite poems that I want to quote is Emily Dickinson, which she says, if I can stop from one heart from breaking, my life won't go in vain. If I can ease one life, its aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, my life won't go in vain. Thank you so much.